Thank you, Athar, for inviting me to just listen to this amazing conversation. Just one small thing which has to do with violence and intentionality. So much violence takes place with good intention, and sometimes, of course, as you pointed out, unwittingly. That it seems to me that to tie violence to intentionality would be, in fact, a terrible mistake. But that's just in parenthesis. The word that, of course, stands out, it seems to me, in everything that you've said, and that the questions were after, is the word removal. Violence cannot be thought without its differential relation to power and to force, which are the words that are brought in. I would actually ask to bring in the word justice as part of a reflection on violence. And of course, Benjamin, I would be with Benjamin on that. The fact that it is in fact not possible to remove violence from force and force from power seems to me to raise a very interesting question about what you do, which is precisely to ask us to think about those together and never assume that the removal of one is so very easy and would actually not involve violence. In other words, if I say my act is just, shouldn't I presume that my act is also always already violent, and that to remove justice from violence might itself be a violent act, but certainly could not be taken for granted. Abstraction is also a form of removal, of course. And so my only reservation, and that would be my question, removal implies subtraction. And when you conclude by asking us to be restorative and to be constructive as opposed to destructive, I'm kind of wondering whether you're not yourself forgetting that construction involves a whole lot of subtraction, that bringing something to the world, a statue, right, involves its removal from the mountain, right? To go back to your image. Is it really possible to distinguish the two, to remove one from the other? And wouldn't it be the case that what you're asking us is to recognize that subtraction is not something that we can simply rid ourselves of, or rid ourselves of responsibility, right? The impossibility to completely differentiate one from the other would be what you actually teach us to do by saying, let's do it with stone, because stone doesn't feel like people do. And then see whether we can actually remove things. But again, you seem to offer us a horizon where there would be non-removal, and that doesn't seem to be possible, even if, of course, that must be what we strive for. So I think I'm asking you to think about sculpture not just as a removal and as a subtraction, but as the impossibility of thinking of addition as some kind of purity, of restoration or construction as some kind of pure horizon. Is that possible? Does that speak to your work? Sorry, I don't mean to be too long, but I'll stop at that.
Hello, Gil. First of all, great to have you here with us. Very interesting point. So, first of all, you need to understand that within the sculptural academic realm, there is the endless discussion of removing material and adding material, right? Stone carving functions literally to removing material, whereas clay modeling functions by adding material on nothingness. There are very interesting philosophical associations that we can do with that, right? Are you a minimalist or are you someone who keeps adding, right? And stone is absolutely the perfect, as you pointed out, the perfect means to apply these things because there are no real consequences. You're not harming anyone, so you can literally do things on stone that you cannot do otherwise, and you can enact criminal gestures on stone, and nobody will blame you ever. You know, I've thrown rocks at stone. I could not do that with anything else. And I put it on fire, and the things that you can do that are very important for stressing out certain other things And the question of subtraction makes me think of, can you subtract? Is there, of course, when you carve, there are a lot of pieces of stone that fall apart. The studio is a mess, and these are all chips that that testify to that violence. But they are all. I'm speaking almost in quantum physics terms. Is it possible to subtract something, right? If there is a limited number of atoms and molecules, you take away here, but actually you're adding there. You're not. I think it's more of a question of transformation. You are removing from the mountain, but then you're removing material from the block that you removed. But basically, you're just transforming it. Because if you focus your attention on what has been removed, the chips of stone, they are also worthy of being there. They have also some kind of value. So you're transforming their states. And the problem is that you're doing that with applied force, right? Well, I don't know if it's a problem. It's just the fact as it is. You have to apply force to engage or to provoke that transformation. So I think everything is connected. I totally agree with you about the intentionality aspect. Yeah, it's all related to each other. I don't know if I have answered your questions, but it was very interesting to think about that.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.